This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
The physical and psychological demands placed upon athletes by a demanding sporting environment may often predispose them to mental health issues. Tonight's Sports Scene show dwells on a topic that is gaining increased attention as more and more top athletes around the world, including here in Africa, come forward to talk about their mental health struggles. Hello and a very warm welcome to your home of African sports news, views and interviews from across the continent and beyond. This is Sports Scene on CGTN. I'm Mahia Mutua in Nairobi. Also coming up on the show, top Nigerian squash player Yemisi Olatunji speaks on balancing sport and business and the toll it takes. And Fiba Africa President Anibal Manav speaks to CGTN on the development and future of basketball on the continent. Welcome to the program. Now, in order to compete at the highest level, today's athletes often incorporate mental training as well as sports and clinical psychologists to improve their performances. Tunisian football giants Espérance de Tunis are exploring how they can eke out better results by improving their mental health and fortitude. CGTN's Adnan Chawashi gets us underway.
Espérance Sportive de Tunis is one of the first clubs in Tunisia to adopt a professional management and training strategy. Head coach Ravi Jaidi has international experience. He says mental preparation for players is one of the pillars for a successful performance.
I was a player and I played for Espérance, and I know what it means, being a player in Tunisia and a big club. So the first thing I thought about is to get, psychologists who can help, daily with the players. Obviously, the most challenge is the unconscious, and try to get the players consciously fit and psychologically, fit to take the right decisions, whether on the pitch or off the pitch, and then help them to understand themselves and understand their teammates to get the best connection and the best performance they can have.
Jaidi added that any Espérance footballer who faces challenges can rely on a professional mental training service. In addition, the staff of the Blood and Gold team accompany and prepare young players psychologically and mentally from the first day in the club's football academy.
The football player generally, throughout his career, he goes through challenges and through setbacks. And from my understanding, some key players we had who had, some disappointments. So we try, to with the mental psychologist, if I can call it, mental psychologist is someone who can support and help, especially the young and academy players, to get the most of them.
Espérance mental performance coach is an experienced sports and clinical psychologist. Mohamed Larousi supports and orients the players to achieve better results.
The Tunisian and African professional player needs the assistance of someone who supports and encourages him. Our work is focused on the mental and the psychological preparation because both have a direct impact on the athlete's performance during tournaments or in the training. Here in Africa, we need to incorporate more mental training and sports as well as clinical psychologists.
Mohammed Amin Ben Hamida is one of the EST's most talented players. The left-back is also a university graduate in mental preparation. He acknowledges the importance of this scientific expertise on the career of professional athletes.
As a player and a specialist, I think mental preparation helps improve our physical output. One cannot compete at the highest levels without mental and psychological skills training.
African giant Espérance Sportive de Tunis has adopted a scientific approach to training and preparation under head coach Ravi Jaidi. Espérance, as well as the national football team, have hired full-time mental training and sports psychologists in order to shine domestically, continentally and globally. Adnan Chawashi, CGTN, Tunis.
Now, Sanani Mangisa is a former South African national women's hockey player and Olympian. She's been raising awareness about the role mental health plays in sport and how athletes tend to lose their identity when they retire. CGTN CS du Plessis spoke to her about her struggles both on and off the AstroTurf and began by asking her about the role the COVID-19 pandemic has played in shining a light on the subject and why it's so hard to talk about.
It's my pleasure to welcome Sanani Mangisa. She's a 112-cap veteran for the South African national women's hockey team. She was goalkeeper and she's been to 2 Olympic Games, Beijing and London. But this time round in Tokyo, she was a fan watching on her couch. Sanani, what was it like during this pandemic watching the South African women's team in action?
It was an interesting games to watch as well. I was mindful of what the athletes probably went through this past year, but at the same time just showed resilience to give us some of the greatest moments. You know, some people call it the pandemic games, but we'll get such good experiences and moments that we'll remember in Olympic history.
The COVID-19 pandemic has shone a bright light on mental health and sport. Why has it been such a tough subject to talk about?
I think it's something we've never openly spoken about. Its existence is, you know, you talk about resilience in sport, mental toughness. We've spoken about these things for a long time in different wording, different forms. So, and also athletes have been in scenarios where we can't give up. We have to tough it out, we have to keep going. So the more dialogue we have about it, the more understanding we put to it and more just, you know, from a human level, understanding each other from a human level, that athletes go through all the stuff we go through first, just on a heightened level with the whole world watching.
There are obviously times in your career where you had your battles with mental health. At that point, being a national hockey player and playing on the biggest stages in the world, was it a case of just having to soldier on?
I've always been in that environment where our mistakes were heightened, so my level of I need to perform for the team was always higher, so the pressure I put on my own self was higher. So it's those moments of understanding that, hang on, you can take 2 minutes and be like, I played well, but what's the context? So it's putting things into context and understanding, and it's the anxiety to perform at a high level.
Not enough has really been done for athletes retiring. Can more be done to sort of facilitate or may help that transition happen?
So we've got to understand that, okay, I know hockey, I've done it for 15, 20 years, 112 caps, but then corporate and business and whatever you transition to, let yourself learn. Allow yourself to learn, take information in, read, and say, I'm going to make a few mistakes, but if I'm pitching up, doing the work, hard graft, it's going to come together, because I think that's what we don't allow ourselves. We want to be Sanani, the 2-time Olympian in the business world as well.
Obviously, a lot of media attention has been put on Naomi Osaka, Simone Biles, Ben Stokes, taking time away from the sport for mental health reasons. What's your take on it?
Kudos to Naomi, who was just like one of the, you know, there's been other athletes who've taken time out, but on a global superstar level, in the middle of a Grand Slam. So it's allowing ourselves that space and then allowing other athletes, because now they've seen an avenue to say, hang on, I'm able to take time off. But the question again, does it get to that level and that heightened if we speak about it earlier? And there is a level of you must toughen up. Sport is hard by nature, but I think we need to be careful to tell those athletes to toughen up when it's really difficult in those situations.
Now, in the past, a number of top global sporting stars have come out publicly to speak about their struggles with mental health. They include Michael Phelps, Ryan Giggs, Serena Williams, Andrew Flintoff, gymnast Ali Raisman, and NBA stars DeMar DeRozan and Kevin Love. Phelps has been open about his battle with depression and suicidal thoughts, while Serena Williams has been forthright about postpartum depression after giving birth to her daughter in 2017. But in recent months, the spotlight has been turned on the issue, with more big names going public with their struggles. 4-time Grand Slam singles champion Naomi Osaka announced she would be taking an indefinite break from tennis, having missed both the French Open and Wimbledon. Her decision comes as fellow tennis professionals Sloane Stephens and Shelby Rogers revealed hateful online harassment they receive on a regular basis. U.S. gymnast Simone Biles brought the issue to the forefront when she missed a week of the recent Tokyo 2020 Olympics in Japan, citing mental health concerns and particularly struggling with the mental aspects of difficult twisting maneuvers. In July, England cricketer Ben Stokes announced he would be taking an indefinite break from all cricket to prioritize his well-being and has received the backing of another top cricketer who himself has spoken out about the issue, India's Virat Kohli. England and Aston Villa defender Tyrone Mings says his mental health plummeted during the Euro 2020 tournament as he came to terms with a lack of self-confidence. Here in Africa, South African national hockey goalkeeper Pumela Mbande has opened up about playing at the top level while coming to terms with anxiety, while Olympic 400 meters champion Wade van Niekerk has termed his slow and agonizing return to full health after injury as more mental than physical. Now, these are just a few of the many cases as the topic becomes harder to ignore, especially with many high-level athletes being more isolated due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, it's time for us to take a short break here on Sports Scene. Here's what's coming up. Top Nigerian squash player Yemisi Olatunji speaks on balancing sports and business and the toll it takes.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Panata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us on Sports Scene. Now, combining competitive sports with active business is no mean feat at all and can be mentally challenging. But Nigeria's top female squash player, Yemisi Olatunji, is managing to do just that. Here is CGTN's Deji Bademosi with her story.
If she's not in the squash court training or competing in tournaments, this is where you'll find Yemisi Olatunji, Nigeria's top female squash player. It's a beauty shop in Lagos where she sells a variety of makeup items. She's been combining active sports and business for some years now and still manages to stay at the top of female squash in the country.
Timing is everything. So I have a diary in which I follow those. Sometimes plans change, but I will know, okay, so in the next 24 hours, these are my plans. In the morning, in the afternoon, the customers that I need to attend to, my training schedule, you know, the coaches' plans as well, the tournament schedule. So, I mean, those things goes hand in hand. You can't drop one for one.
Olatunji says coping with both worlds comes with a lot of challenges, including mental ones. She says she has had her own fair share of experience.
Then another experience of mine is I was in a competition that was in Nigeria. And then I was still doing my ND. And they called me in school that Yemisi, I was in my final year, and they called me, we couldn't find your file in the department. I was right there in the middle of the tournament and they called me. That's a mental challenge. You know, we have spent years and somebody just called out, they couldn't find your, you know, your file in the department. It's crazy. It took me just a second to be able to fight back myself into the court because I was losing already, because I wasn't myself, because I put in a lot of things in it. Schooling, business, sports. So, but because I was still able to get myself right there, you know, mentally, as a sports person, as a business person, you have to be strong mentally, because definitely a lot of things will be a mental challenge to you. So, I mean, it is what it is. You cannot escape it from a mental challenge.
Despite the enormous mental task of having to run her business full-time and still engage in active sports, Olatunji says over time her sport has been like a medicine in overcoming any mental health challenge that comes her way.
Being a sports person is more of a competitive life. So that really helped in going deep into a business, in which has really been helping me with my business line and my professional life as well. And at the same time, when you're doing a business and you're not giving the brain enough exercise, it affects your thinking.
As difficult as it might seem combining full-time business and sports, Yemisi has been able to find the right balance to excel in both. She's the #1 ranked female squash player in the country and 153rd in the world. She's still aiming to achieve even much bigger things in the sports, while keeping her eyes on her fashion business. Deji Bademasi, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
Now, for more on this topic of mental health in sports, we're now joined by Professor Leon van Niekerk, the Acting Dean in the Faculty of Health and Sciences at the University of Fort Hare, East London in South Africa. Professor, thank you very much for joining us. To start us off, recent data shows that 35% of elite athletes are suffering from mental health issues. Why is this the case?
Yeah, thanks for having me, and good evening, everybody. Mental health is one of those issues in sport that has been neglected for quite some time. That's why the numbers are so high. Usually athletes suffer in silence because of their mental health issues. They don't want to tell their teammates, they don't want to tell the coach for fear of not being included in a team or fear of stigmatization. So the numbers escalate. Like 35% is much more than what a country on average in its average population has. So usually for athletes, the numbers are quite elevated. And that is due to a combination of personal issues or a personality approach to their environment and the environment itself. Athletes are constantly in the spotlight, especially if they are professional, and they have to perform in a high performance environment. So they do push themselves, they push themselves unnecessarily high because of their expectations and the expectations of the public and the expectations of a coach or even themselves that are quite high. So their standards are extremely high, and in their approach to achieve those goals and those standards, very often they fall short. And then they begin a process of judging themselves and evaluating themselves quite harsh, especially if they lose a few times, especially if they miss their goals with a tiny bit even, they can become quite hard on themselves. So the pressure of the environment of high performance and the constant evaluation of such an athlete sometimes becomes too much. And remember, these are people that push themselves to the limit. Whether they are in sport or whether they are in business or in academia, they want to be the best and they really want to do well in their sport. And
Professor,
anytime they miss something,
bringing in an external aspect to this, Professor, what has been the effect then of the global pandemic on the mental well-being of athletes as well?
It has just aggravated it. With some research now that we did after the second lockdown 4 among our athletes, we found that about 46.5% of them are at risk of developing mental health issues. So the isolation that came with the pandemic had quite a significant impact on them because they constantly think about missing out opportunities for a scout to see them, missing out opportunities to train and get themselves ready and improve their skills, missing out on opportunities to perform and be on the world stage. So that fear of having a loss in their life because they find it difficult to perform or to be part of their sport is aggravating their depression or their anxiety. They become worried that they might miss opportunities. And remember, the career of an athlete is very short, especially if they are professional. By the age of 28, 30, they are retiring from their sport. So every year and every opportunity they miss is a significant opportunity for them that they miss to achieve their goals. So the isolation, the lockdown has really robbed them from quite a number of experiences, and they experience that as a loss over and above the stress and the pressure to be out there and be in the limelight is just aggravating their experience of depression or anxiety.
And finally, Professor, very briefly, what then needs to be done to protect sportspersons against mental health issues?
I'm so glad about people promoting mental health among the athletes as well, so that the stigmatization can be removed. Then we need to find ways to assist coaches and athletes to prevent mental health issues. We have to detect it early and then treat it appropriately. For a long time, sports psychologists and coaches has focused on the mental toughness of the athlete. We have to develop them mentally to perform well and neglect the issue of mental health. Being in constant performance under constant pressure is not healthy. So if they are going to continue with that kind of lifestyle, we have to make sure that we include programs and workshops and awareness for our athletes to take care of themselves mentally before it is too late, before they run into depression, before they run into anxiety disorders or even substance abuse. And the worst of it all, you know, some athletes commit suicide because of this.
Right.
So we really need to be able to prevent and detect and treat them well.
All right, Professor, thank you very much for your insights. Professor Leon van Niekerk, the acting dean in the Faculty of Health and Sciences at the University of Fort Hare, joining us live there from East London, South Africa. Moving on from mental health and sports, 2 South African trail runners are over the moon after breaking a Guinness World Record for covering the greatest vertical distance in less than 24 hours. Christian Grayling and AJ Kalitz chose Table Mountain in Cape Town to complete this grueling task. And they did it all for a good cause, to raise money for a non-governmental educational organization that helps children. CGTN's Julie Shire now reports.
Table Mountain's Platteklip Gorge is a grueling climb. South African trail runners Christian Kalitz and AJ Grayling did it 14 times, covering 19,376 meters to clinch a Guinness World Record.
We decided during lockdown that we want to do something extraordinary in the shortest time possible, and AJ came up with the idea to run up Table Mountain and cover the most vertical distance ever by a team in 24 hours. So it was quite a special day for both me and AJ. I think it was a top of our careers as trail runners.
It's so important to just create hope. I think we live in a time where, especially after lockdown, it was so difficult. People lost hope. And if our efforts inspired someone to get out the door and put their running shoes on, whether it's down the street or up a mountain, you know, that is in itself the goal.
It took months of intense preparation and lots of sweat, dehydration and cramps. The pair also had to complete the task and be back home before the allocated curfew time.
He had 20 hours to break a 24-hour world record, and that made it supremely tough. But, you know, highlights definitely, the first couple of laps in the dark was amazing. The weather was cool, and it was just me and Christian on the mount. It was really fantastic.
It's now 8:15, and we've just done over 8,000 meters elevation. We are positive, but it hurts a lot.
The aim was to not only show off Table Mountain as one of the natural wonders, but also to raise money for a non-governmental organization that works with children.
Education in South Africa is definitely lacking, and I think it's the root cause to a lot of problems. So EduNova, they see this problem and they go and address it at the source, where they supply kids with tablets and enable them to learn from wherever they are, at home or in little ECD facilities in these areas that need it.
These athletes couldn't have chosen a more beautiful location to set their Guinness World Record, but their real achievement lies in bringing change to South Africa's education system. Julie Shara, CGTN, Cape Town, South Africa.
Well, it's time for us to take another short break. Here's what's still to come on Sports Scene. Fiba Africa President Anibal Manav speaks to CGTN on the development and future of basketball on the continent. Welcome back. Now, the recently concluded FIBA Afro-Basket became the latest major continental sporting event to be held this year. FIBA Africa President Anibal Manav has been talking to CGTN's Mohamed Abubakar and began by assessing this year's competition in Rwanda.
This Afro-Basket is special Afro-Basket because it's happening in very specific circumstances. We have COVID since last year, so it's not easy to organize a competition under these circumstances. And based on this, I think that the kind of Afro-Basket that we have, it's very good. And not only this, it's very important. It shows everybody that it's possible, we in Africa, specifically in basketball, to continuing playing.
What will world-class facilities like the Kigali Arena do to inspire the growth of basketball in this part of the world?
We are happy with these facilities. This is what we want. This is what we expect each country to have. This is very important for the kids to starting play in these facilities, to start understand the importance of the game. We hope that we can have this in Africa, not only here, but in other countries, okay? Let's say Congo, South Sudan, that is here, and Guinea, because this is going to help our level of basketball.
Finally, Anibal, this is your first term as the FIBA Africa president. What are the targets you've set to be able to continue growing the game of basketball in Africa?
We have many challenges, specifically 3 challenges. We have to enlarge the family of basketball, to have more people playing, more stakeholders involved. Another objective that we have is to look for the women in basketball. This is my feeling, that we have big potential in women, and probably we can get a medal first in women than men. And the third objective is to look for the national federation. We need to improve our organization. The national federations, we believe that they are part important of our development. So we need to put our attention, to put our effort, and also our resources to improve this, our organization.
And that's where we leave it on this week's edition of Sports Scene. Do remember, you can send your feedback to the contacts on your screen and follow us on our digital media platforms. Thanks for watching from myself and everyone here. We leave you with our move of the week, where Formula One Championship leader Max Verstappen took his Red Bull car around the streets of Sicily's capital, Palermo, to pay homage to one of the great Italian cities.